Ladies and gentlemen, every human being is born with a mind, an invisible battlefield where the future is either built or buried. The truth is simple but powerful. You become what you think. You are not a product of your environment. You are not defined by your circumstances. You are the result of your dominant thoughts. Everything you are today and everything you will become tomorrow is rooted in what you allow to take residence in your mind. Let me make it plain. Your mind is the womb of your future. What you conceive in thought, you will eventually give birth to in action, and what you give birth to will shape your destiny. The greatest attack on your life will always be against your thoughts. Why? Because the enemy knows that if he can control your thinking, he doesn't need to control your body. Your feet will never go where your mind hasn't already gone. You don't need new circumstances. You need a renewed mind. The ancient text says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." That word transform means to change completely. In other words, your thoughts are either promoting you or imprisoning you. Too many people die full of dreams they never pursued, full of potential they never used, full of ideas they never shared. Why? Because of toxic thinking. They let fear, doubt, and past failures govern their thoughts. But here's the good news. You are not a victim of your thoughts. You are the master of them. You can choose what you think about. You can reject thoughts that contradict your purpose and identity. You can set your mind on things that build, uplift, and empower. Let me challenge you today. Guard your mind like a fortress. Don't allow just anything to enter. Every thought is a seed and you are the soil. What you allow to take root will grow, so be intentional. So thoughts of faith, vision, discipline, and greatness. If you think small, you will live small. But if you think according to your purpose, nothing can stop you. You rise or fall to the level of your thinking. The most powerful force in your life is not your background, not your education, not your environment. It is your thought life. Who you are today is a reflection of the thoughts you consistently entertained yesterday. Your thoughts are the architects of your identity. Every idea you hold, every belief you accept, every assumption you allow into your mental space, slowly and silently forms the contours of your character. You are not shaped by what happens to you, but by what you think about what happens to you. Identity is not discovered in a mirror. It is discovered in the mind, and the mind, when left unmanaged, becomes a warehouse of other people's opinions, culture's limitations, and past experiences. But when cultivated and disciplined, it becomes a garden where greatness can grow. Your thoughts do not merely pass through your brain like drifting clouds. They are seeds, and your mind is fertile soil. If you allow negative, fearful, or bitter thoughts to be sown repeatedly, they will eventually take root, grow strong, and produce a harvest of defeat, anxiety, and smallness. Most people do not realize that they are daily involved in an invisible construction project. They are building their future identity brick by brick, thought by thought. The mind does not simply observe life, it interprets it, and your interpretation becomes your internal reality. That's why two people can go through the same event, yet come out with completely different results. One grows, the other shrinks. One overcomes, the other succumbs. The difference lies in how each one thinks. A thought is more than just a fleeting whisper. It is an instruction to your being. When you say, "I can't," your mind prepares your body to retreat. When you say, "I am not enough," your brain rewires itself to act as if that were true. But when you say, "I can learn, I can grow, I was made for more," you activate parts of your potential that were lying dormant. Your brain follows your beliefs, not the facts. And the most dangerous thing about a lie is when it is believed as truth. Because once a lie enters the mind and is left unchallenged, it becomes a command that the body obeys without question. Your self-image is nothing more than the composite picture painted by years of repeated thinking. If you think long enough that you are a failure, you will become one. Not because you were born that way, but because your thoughts made you feel at home in that identity. If you think of yourself as successful, even before success is visible, you begin to operate with the confidence, discipline, and posture that success demands. The transformation begins on the inside long before it is seen on the outside. That is why protecting your thought life is not optional. It is essential. You must ask yourself regularly, what am I thinking about myself? What inner conversations am I having when no one is around? Because those inner conversations are not private, they are programming you, they are training you to respond to life in a certain way, and sooner or later your thoughts will leak out into your behavior, your speech, your habits, and your destiny. Identity is not fixed. It is fluid. It changes as your thinking changes. This is why people can radically transform their lives not by changing everything around them, but by changing what's happening within them. When you adopt a new way of thinking, you adopt a new way of being. Because who you are is tied directly to how you think. You will never consistently live above the level of your thoughts. If you want to elevate your life, you must elevate your thinking. The greatest wars are not fought on physical soil with tanks and missiles. They are fought in the unseen chambers of the human mind. The mind is the first territory any enemy, spiritual, emotional, or psychological, seeks to invade and conquer. Whoever controls your thoughts controls your life. Before anything happens in your reality, it happens in your mentality. That is why the battle for your future is always fought in the arena of your thoughts. If you lose there, you lose everywhere else. The mind is not just where you process information. It is where you wage war. Every single day, thoughts are entering your mental space like soldiers in a conflict. Some come with the assignment to build, to encourage, to strengthen, and to inspire. Others come to distract, discourage, diminish, and ultimately destroy. Your role is not to be passive. You are the gatekeeper of your own mind. You cannot afford to let just any thought have access to the control center of your life. Many people walk around physically free but mentally imprisoned. They are captives of fear, prisoners of shame, and hostages of regret, all because they have lost the battle in the mind. And yet, these same individuals could rise into victory if they understood that they have been given the authority to cast down thoughts that don't belong and to lift up thoughts that align with truth and purpose. The mind is both a target and a tool. If you do not control it, something else will. Thoughts are not harmless. They carry weight, they have substance, and they direct the flow of your life. Every addiction, every act of compromise, every destructive habit first began as a thought that was not resisted. The thought entered quietly, subtly, often even logically, but once entertained, it found a place to stay. And like an uninvited guest, it grew more demanding until it controlled the house. This is how the enemy works, not through open confrontation, but through mental suggestion. It is not the loud lies that are the most dangerous, but the subtle haft, roots that slip past your mental filters. Your mind is not neutral ground. It is occupied territory. If you do not actively renew your mind, you will be conformed to a world that wants to dictate your identity, your worth, and your potential. The systems around you are designed to shape how you think, because once your thinking is shaped, your living will follow. That is why the media, education, culture, and even past trauma all fight for influence in your mental space. They all know that if they win the battle for your thoughts, they don't have to fight for your behavior. To win in life, you must first learn to win in the mind. You must become disciplined in what you allow to repeat itself in your internal dialogue. Because repetition is how strongholds are formed. A thought that comes once can be dismissed, but a thought that comes 10,000 times can build a fortress. And once that fortress is established, you will defend it even if it's destroying you. Many people today are defending the very thoughts that are defeating them. All because they have not realized that the mind is a battleground and not a playground. You cannot afford to be casual with your thoughts. Casual thinking leads to casualties in destiny. You must examine your mental habits just like a soldier inspects his weapons, thoroughly and regularly. What am I thinking when I wake up? What patterns dominate my thoughts throughout the day? What voices have I given permission to speak into my inner world? These questions are not optional. They are necessary for survival. Because if you don't identify the enemy within, you will be taken captive by it without a fight. The mind is too valuable to be left undefended. Behavior is never random. Every action a person takes, every habit they form, every decision they make is rooted in a belief. You don't act according to what you know, you act according to what you believe. A person may know that something is possible, but if they don't believe it's possible for them, they will never attempt it. That is the power of belief. It sets the parameters of your behavior. It defines your level of expectation and determines the standard you hold for your own life. People often try to change their habits without ever confronting the beliefs that created those habits. They try to fix the fruit without addressing the root. But behavior is just the visible outgrowth of invisible beliefs. What you do consistently reveals what you truly believe. If you believe you are valuable, you will carry yourself with dignity and make decisions that reflect self-respect. If you believe you are not worthy, you will tolerate what is beneath your calling and sabotage opportunities that require confidence. Beliefs are not always spoken, but they are always present. You don't have to articulate your beliefs for them to influence your behavior. They are embedded in your subconscious and guide your reactions, your choices, and even your relationships. That's why two people with the same skill set and education can walk into the same room and have completely different outcomes. One believes he belongs, and so he engages with confidence. The other believes he is an outsider, and so he shrinks back into the shadows. Belief dictates posture long before it affects performance. The most dangerous beliefs are not the ones shouted out loud. They are the quiet ones that live deep inside, formed by past pain, childhood messages, failures, or voices of authority. These hidden beliefs become the filters through which we view every situation. They color our interpretation of events. They whisper explanations when things go wrong, and they write the internal narratives that either push us forward or pull us back. A man who believes he is destined to fail will unconsciously make choices that fulfill that prophecy. It won't be because he lacked opportunity. It will be because he lacked the belief to seize it. Belief is the compass of behavior. It gives direction to your energy. It tells your mind what to focus on and your body how to respond. That is why belief systems are the foundation of personal transformation. You cannot behave differently until you believe differently. No amount of external motivation can produce lasting change if it does not penetrate the core of what a person believes about themselves and their future. You can attend every seminar, listen to every speaker, and read every book, but if you walk away still believing you are not capable, you will continue to act as though you are not. Beliefs are formed in many ways. They can come through repetition. What you hear over and over again begins to take root. They can come through experience, especially painful or powerful ones. They can come through authority, what someone you respected told you, especially in moments when you were vulnerable. But no matter how they were formed, beliefs can be challenged and replaced. You are not stuck with the beliefs you inherited. You can inspect them, question them, and rebuild them on truth and purpose. That's why intentional belief work is not just an exercise in positivity. It is a matter of destiny. Until your beliefs align with your potential, you will live beneath it. Behavior will always lag behind belief. People don't rise to the level of their intentions. They rise to the level of their identity. If you want to walk in freedom, you must first believe you are free. If you want to lead, you must first believe you have something worth following. Your behavior is just a mirror reflecting your belief system, and the mirror will not change until the belief does. Potential is not something you have to earn. It's something you were born with. It is the untapped power within you, the hidden capacity that has not yet been expressed. But potential is fragile. It does not automatically fulfill itself. It must be nurtured, developed, and protected. And one of the greatest threats to potential is negative thinking. Not lack of skill, not lack of opportunity, but the presence of toxic, limiting thoughts. Negative thinking is like a virus. It infects the mind, weakens confidence, distorts perspective, and paralyzes action. It does not need to shout to be destructive. It works subtly, slowly convincing you that greatness is beyond your reach. Every great accomplishment begins with a thought. So does every failure. The mind is the soil and thoughts are the seeds. If you consistently plant thoughts of doubt, fear, insecurity, and shame, you will reap a harvest of hesitation, retreat, and self-sabotage. Many people never walk into their purpose, not because they were never called, but because they convinced themselves they were not qualified. They talk themselves out of the very opportunities they once prayed for. They decline challenges before they even try, not because they cannot succeed, but because their thinking told them they would fail. Negative thinking is not just about pessimism, it's about perception. It alters how you see everything. It takes every setback as proof that you are not good enough. It magnifies your flaws and minimizes your strengths. It rewrites your history and projects a dark version of your future. It is an internal voice that repeats old messages from rejection, past mistakes, broken relationships, or authority figures who did not see your worth. Over time, these thoughts form mental strongholds, rigid patterns of thinking that lock you into cycles of self-limitation. What makes negative thinking so dangerous is its ability to disguise itself as logic. It doesn't always sound toxic. It often sounds realistic. It says things like, be careful, don't take that risk, don't aim too high, don't expect too much. It pretends to protect you from disappointment, but in reality, it imprisons you in mediocrity. It teaches you to settle for less, to stay in safe zones, to shrink from your true size. You begin to live based on fear management rather than vision fulfillment. Potential is like a seed. It carries within it everything necessary for growth, but it needs the right environment. Negative thinking is the wrong environment. It creates mental conditions that choke out ambition and smother creativity. You may have ideas, talents, and gifts, but if they are buried under layers of negative thought, they will never surface. You may try, but you will try half-heartedly. You may speak, but you will speak with hesitation. You may start, but you will start expecting to fail. One of the most tragic things is to see someone with extraordinary ability who is stuck in a small life. They aren't stuck because of external chains. They are stuck because of internal chains. Chains forged by years of thinking that conditioned them to expect little, try little, and achieve little. This is the silent killer of destiny. Not what others think of you, but what you have come to believe about yourself. And the longer those negative thoughts go unchallenged, the deeper they dig into your identity. You were never designed to live under the weight of negativity. Your mind was created to envision, to build, to believe. When you entertain destructive thoughts, you are using your imagination against yourself. You are programming your system to resist your own progress. Even your body responds to your thoughts. Your posture, your tone of voice, your energy levels. Everything begins to conform to the messages you send from the inside. If those messages are filled with defeat, it won't be long before your actions follow suit. You begin to perform according to a diminished script, one that was never written by your creator, but one that was handed to you by fear, trauma, and distorted thinking. The mind is a powerful instrument, but it is also easily influenced. In a world full of noise, alerts, options, and interruptions, discipline has become one of the rarest and most necessary virtues. Without discipline, your thoughts become scattered, your focus becomes fragmented, and your purpose becomes diluted. Discipline is not about restriction. It is about direction. It gives your thoughts an assignment. It tells your mind where to go instead of letting it wander aimlessly from one distraction to another. A person who cannot discipline their thoughts will always be controlled by their environment. They will react instead of lead, drift instead of drive, and consume instead of create. Distraction is the enemy of direction. It is the subtle thief that robs you of your attention, not all at once, but bit by bit. It doesn't always look harmful. It often disguises itself as urgency, entertainment, or even productivity. It pulls your thoughts away from the essential and toward the immediate. And over time, The most important things in your life begin to suffer because they are constantly competing with things that don't matter. When your mind is constantly shifting from one thing to another, it loses its ability to go deep. It becomes trained to skim rather than study, to react rather than reflect. Every great achievement in history was born from sustained focus. No invention, no masterpiece, no breakthrough ever came from a distracted mind. It takes discipline to hold a thought long enough to shape it into an idea, to refine that idea into a plan, and to execute that plan with precision. It takes discipline to shut out the noise, to say no to the unnecessary, and to build the mental habits that lead to mastery. Without discipline, your thoughts will chase comfort rather than calling, and entertainment rather than enlightenment. And the cost of that compromise is the gradual erosion of your potential. Many people are not lacking in vision, they are lacking in focus. They have dreams, goals, and passions, but they never experience progress because their thoughts are always divided. They start, but they do not finish. They commit, but they do not follow through. And at the core of that inconsistency is a mind that has not been trained to stay the course. Discipline is what strengthens the mind to endure boredom, to push through resistance, and to keep showing up even when the emotional high has worn off. It gives your thoughts structure, like a riverbank gives direction to water. Discipline is not automatic. It must be developed through intentional practice. It begins with small decisions: what you read, what you watch, how you start your day, what you choose to think about when you're alone. These are not minor choices, they are training grounds. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you reinforce the mental muscles that will carry you in moments of pressure. And every time you give in to mental laziness, you weaken your ability to command your thoughts when it matters most. Distraction is not just external, it's internal. It can come from unresolved emotions, conflicting priorities, or a lack of clarity about what truly matters. That is why part of discipline is knowing what to ignore. You cannot give your attention to everything. You must decide what deserves your mental energy and what doesn't. And that decision must be made ahead of time, not in the moment. Because when your mind is undisciplined, it will always choose ease over effort. It will gravitate toward whatever requires the least from you. But discipline teaches your thoughts to submit to your values, not your impulses. When you take control of your focus, you take control of your future. The most successful, fulfilled, and impactful people are not the ones with the most talent. They are the ones who have trained their minds to stay on course. They don't let distraction dictate their day. They have disciplined their thinking to align with their purpose. They understand that thoughts are seeds, and where you plant them determines what kind of harvest you will live with tomorrow. Most people live by default, not design. They wake up each day and allow thoughts to come and go without any filter or direction. They do not realize that thought is a creative force, not just a mental activity. Thinking is not something that merely happens to you. It is something you must take responsibility for. The difference between a purposeful life and a passive one is how intentionally a person thinks. Your life will always move in the direction of your dominant thoughts. If those thoughts are unexamined and uncontrolled, then your life becomes a reflection of chaos, not calling. Thinking on purpose means that you decide what you will think about, how you will think about it, and for what reason. It is the habit of intentional mental focus. It is choosing your thoughts the same way you choose your clothes, deliberately and according to what suits your purpose. Default thinking, on the other hand, is based on reaction. It is shaped by external circumstances, moods, news cycles, and the opinions of others. It drifts, it wanders, it revisits the past without resolution, and it imagines the future without faith. Default thinking waits for life to happen and then responds. Purposeful thinking makes life happen by deciding where attention will be directed. When you do not think on purpose, you forfeit control over the most powerful tool you possess. Your mind becomes like an open city with no walls, no guards, no order. Any thought can enter: fear, worry, jealousy, anger, discouragement. And once inside, those thoughts begin to shape how you feel, how you speak, and what you expect. Most people underestimate the power of one unchecked thought. A single lie believed can alter an entire decade. A single doubt entertained can kill a vision in its infancy. Purposeful thinking means you examine every thought, you test it, and you ask, does this thought serve my vision? Does it reflect truth, or is it based on fear? Is this thought productive or destructive? Purposeful thinking requires clarity. You cannot think with intention if you do not know your intention. You must define what matters most to you. What is your assignment? What are your values? What future are you trying to create? Without answers to these questions, your thoughts will be hijacked by anything urgent, dramatic, or loud. You will spend hours thinking about things that have no eternal value. You will burn mental energy on opinions, offenses, regrets, and comparisons. But when you think on purpose, you become a steward of your thought life. You focus your mind like a laser, not a flashlight. You direct your attention towards solutions, not just problems. You reflect rather than react. Thinking on purpose also involves choosing mental environments that support your growth. The people you listen to, the books you read, the conversations you entertain, these all shape the quality of your thoughts. You cannot think like a leader while constantly feeding on mental junk food. You must create thought routines that support clarity, creativity, and conviction. Just as athletes train their bodies, purposeful individuals train their minds. They don't allow their minds to dwell on offense, to meditate on failure, or to rehearse limitation. They discipline their minds to align with faith, vision, and possibility. When you shift from default to design, your inner life begins to align with your outer goals. You stop chasing peace and start cultivating it. You stop reacting to life and begin creating from within. You become consistent not because circumstances are perfect, but because your thinking is anchored. Purposeful thinking builds mental momentum. Every time you choose a thought that supports your purpose, you strengthen your identity. You begin to believe in who you are becoming. You become intentional with your words, your habits, your decisions. All because you first became intentional with your thoughts. Your life is not shaped by chance. It is shaped by choice. And the most foundational choices you make begin in the arena of your thoughts. As you think, so you become. Your thoughts are not just private whispers in your mind. They are blueprints for your future. They build the architecture of your behavior. They define the limits of your potential. And they either align with your destiny or drift you away from it. This is why you must take full responsibility for your thought life. You must guard your mind like a sacred garden, pulling out weeds of negativity, fear, and doubt before they take root. You must plant seeds of truth, purpose, and faith, knowing that every thought repeated becomes a belief, and every belief shapes your behavior. You are not a victim of your thinking, you are the architect of it. You don't have to accept every thought that passes through your mind. You can challenge it, you can redirect it, you can choose discipline over distraction, purpose over passivity, and truth over tradition. You can reprogram the beliefs that have kept you bound and rewrite the mental scripts that have held you back. You are becoming something every day. The question is, are you becoming what you were created to be, or are you becoming what the world has told you to settle for? If you want to change your life, change your thoughts. If you want to fulfill your purpose, control your mind, think on purpose, not by default, because what you allow to live in your mind will eventually live in your future. Control your thoughts, and you will reclaim your life.